Rome, a city of immense power and legendary glory. Yet, beneath the surface, deep troubles brewed. The old ways were failing. Powerful men battled fiercely for control. The Senate's authority was weak. Political violence was common. The common people suffered greatly. The city was a volatile tinderbox. Into this chaos, a figure was destined to emerge. Gaius Julius Caesar was born around 100 BC. His family, the Julians, were patricians claiming divine descent. Young Caesar was exceptionally clever and daring. He faced mortal peril early in life. The dictator Sulla threatened him, but Caesar refused to bend. He began his climb in Roman politics. He served with distinction in the army. He honed his skills as a powerful orator. The common crowds loved his charm. He believed Rome needed a strong guiding hand. The world would soon know his name. Caesar returned to Rome, a city of political rivalry. Sulla was gone, but the scars remained. Caesar began his ascent, seeking public office. He proved himself a masterful speaker. The plebeians saw in him a champion. He borrowed heavily, accumulating debts. He spent lavishly on public games. His creditors were tied to his success. He served as a military tribune and held minor magistracies. He was preparing for the larger battles ahead. Rome was dominated by powerful individuals. Caesar saw an opportunity and needed allies. He forged a secret pact with Pompey and Crassus. This was the first triumvirate. They combined their resources to control the Roman state. In 59 BC, Caesar was elected consul. He pushed through legislation for his allies. He enacted land reforms and measures for Crassus. His actions were bold and sometimes legally questionable. He was now a dominant force in Rome. As Caesar's consulship ended, he looked to Gaul. He needed protection and an army loyal to him. He secured command of Cisalpine Gaul and Illyricum. Transalpine Gaul was soon added to his command. This gave him authority over a huge area and several legions. Gaul was a land of opportunity. Caesar saw a theater for military glory and immense wealth. He could build an independent power base. The wealth from conquests would free him from debts. The stage was set for a transformative military campaign. Caesar arrived in Gaul in 58 BC. It was a vast, wild territory with numerous Celtic tribes. Caesar held command over 4 legions. He saw a world to conquer. The Gallic tribes were fierce but divided. Caesar could exploit these divisions. The Helvetii migration threatened the region. Caesar moved swiftly, blocking their path. Near Bibracte, he decisively defeated the Helvetii. Gaul faced another danger from the Germanic tribes. The Helvetii began their migration. Caesar moved quickly, blocking their path. Near Bibracte, he decisively defeated them. Gaul faced another danger from the Germanic tribes. The Suebi, led by Ariovistus, were pushing west. Gallic chieftains appealed to Caesar for help. Caesar demanded Ariovistus halt his advances. The armies met in the Vosges Mountains. Roman discipline triumphed over the Germans. Caesar was now the master of central Gaul. With Gaul pacified, Caesar's ambition turned to Britannia. He saw immense prestige in leading an army across the Oceanus. In 55 BC, he launched his first expedition. It was a reconnaissance in force. He returned the next year with a larger force. Caesar showed Britannia could be reached. He had opened the door. A fragile peace settled over Gaul. But beneath the surface, resentment smoldered. The Gallic tribes, proud and independent, chafed under Roman rule. They had suffered immense losses, their lands were occupied, their freedom was gone. In 52 BC, the embers of rebellion burst into a raging fire. A charismatic young nobleman of the Arverni tribe, Vercingetorix, rose to prominence. He was a brilliant leader, a skilled orator, and a cunning strategist. He achieved what no Gallic leader before him had managed. He united the disparate warring tribes of Gaul into a single grand alliance against Rome. The ultimate test for Caesar had arrived. Vercingetorix understood he could not defeat the Roman legions in open battle. He adopted a new, brutal strategy: scorched earth. He persuaded his countrymen to burn their own towns and villages, destroy their crops and food supplies. This would deny the Roman army sustenance. He waged a relentless guerrilla war, harassing Roman supply lines, ambushing foraging parties. Caesar's legions, accustomed to decisive victories, found themselves struggling. They faced starvation and constant attack. For a time, the tide seemed to turn against the Romans. Caesar's own position was perilous, his reputation, his very survival, hung in the balance. The rebellion reached its climax at Alesia. Vercingetorix and his main army, some 80,000 warriors, retreated into this heavily fortified hilltop town. Caesar, with around 50,000 legionaries, laid siege. He ordered the construction of an incredible set of fortifications. A massive inner wall 11 miles long surrounded Alesia, trapping Vercingetorix. Then, knowing a huge Gallic relief army was coming, Caesar ordered a second outer wall built, 13 miles long. His legions were now besieged themselves, caught between two enemy forces. It was an audacious, almost insane gamble. The fate of Gaul and of Caesar would be decided here. The Gallic relief army, said to number over 250,000 men, finally arrived. They launched furious attacks on Caesar's outer defenses. Simultaneously, Vercingetorix and his trapped army assaulted the inner wall. The Romans fought desperately, pressed from both sides. Caesar rode along the lines, urging his men on, his red cloak a beacon in the chaos. The fighting was savage, the outcome uncertain for days. In the end, Roman discipline, engineering, and Caesar's unwavering leadership prevailed. The relief army was broken and scattered. Seeing this, the starving defenders of Alesia lost all hope. Vercingetorix, noble in defeat, surrendered himself to Caesar. Gaul was finally completely crushed. Caesar's conquest was complete. Caesar returned to Rome. He was no longer just a general, he was the undisputed master. The long, bloody civil war against Pompey was over. Pompey himself was dead, betrayed in Egypt. Caesar's legions had triumphed on battlefields across the Roman world. The Republic, as it had existed for centuries, was effectively finished. Its institutions still stood like empty shells. But true power now rested with one man, Julius Caesar. He held the fate of Rome in his hands. The city waited, breathless, to see what he would do. The Senate, once a proud and powerful body, now bowed before him. Its members, a mix of old aristocrats and new men loyal to Caesar, showered him with honors. They named him Pater Patriae, Father of the Fatherland. They granted him triumphs, celebrating his victories with lavish parades. Statues were erected in his image. His name was inserted into public prayers. Some senators acted out of genuine admiration. Others acted out of fear, hoping to appease the man who held all the swords. Rome had never seen such power concentrated in a single individual. Caesar accumulated titles and offices. He was made consul repeatedly. He was appointed dictator, first for a limited term, then for 10 years. Finally, in early 44 BC, he was declared dictator perpetuo dictator for life. This was a radical departure from Roman tradition. The dictatorship was an emergency office meant to be temporary. To hold it for life signaled the end of collective rule. It placed Caesar above the law, above the Senate, above all other magistrates. He was, in all but name, a king, a title Romans deeply distrusted. Yet Caesar did not seize power merely for its own sake. He had a vision for Rome. He saw a state that was broken, inefficient, and corrupt. The old republican system had failed to manage a vast and growing empire. He believed that only a strong, decisive leader could restore order and govern effectively. His reforms were ambitious. They aimed to tackle deep-seated problems. He wanted to rebuild Rome, to make it stronger, more stable, and more just. He was ready to reshape the Roman world according to his grand design. Caesar immediately set about addressing Rome's most pressing issues. Debt was a crippling problem for many citizens. Caesar introduced measures for debt relief. These were carefully crafted. They aimed to help debtors without completely ruining creditors. He also launched vast public works projects. New buildings, roads, and infrastructure were planned. These projects provided employment for thousands of Rome's poor. They also beautified the city, making it a capital worthy of a world empire. His actions brought a sense of purpose and activity after years of civil strife. The Senate itself underwent significant changes. Caesar increased its membership from around 600 to 900. Many of these new senators were his own supporters. Some came from prominent Italian families, others were even from the provinces like Gaul and Spain. This diluted the power of the old, entrenched aristocratic families. It also made the Senate more representative of the diverse peoples under Roman rule. He reformed provincial administration. He aimed to reduce the notorious corruption of governors. He wanted fairer treatment for the empire's subjects. Caesar understood the importance of integrating the empire. He generously extended Roman citizenship. Many people in Cisalpine Gaul, northern Italy, became full Roman citizens. He planned similar extensions for other loyal provinces. He founded numerous colonies for his veteran soldiers. He also settled many of Rome's urban poor in these new communities across the empire. These colonies helped to relieve overcrowding in Rome. They also spread Roman language, law, and culture. They became centers of Romanization, strengthening the empire's fabric. In Rome itself, Caesar initiated ambitious building programs. His most famous project was the Forum Julium, or Caesar's Forum. This was a magnificent new public square, adjacent to the old Roman Forum. It included a temple dedicated to Venus Genitrix, Caesar's mythical ancestor. These grand constructions were not just about aesthetics. They provided jobs. They glorified Caesar and his achievements. They were powerful statements of his authority and his vision for a renewed, magnificent Rome. He was literally reshaping the heart of the city. He was building a capital for the future. One of Caesar's most enduring reforms was the calendar. The Roman calendar was chaotic and politically manipulated. Caesar, advised by astronomer Sosigenes, introduced the Julian calendar. It had 365 days with a leap year every 4 years. This reform brought order and predictability to Roman life. The Julian calendar's influence extends to the present day. Caesar stood as a colossus bestriding the Roman world. His power was absolute, his reforms far-reaching. He had brought order after years of savage, bloody civil war. He offered peace, stability, and a vision for a renewed Rome. Yet beneath the surface of calm, a dangerous current of resentment stirred. Many senators, proud aristocrats of ancient lineage, watched him with growing fear. They whispered of tyranny. They saw not a savior, but a king in all but name. The very word king was poison in Rome, a specter from a banished past. This fear was the seed of a deadly conspiracy. Among the discontented nobles, plots began to hatch in shadowed corners. They spoke of liberty, of restoring the Republic's ancient dignities. Marcus Junius Brutus was a key figure, a man respected for his integrity. He claimed descent from the Brutus, who had expelled Rome's last king centuries before. Duty, he felt, called him to act. Gaius Cassius Longinus, a skilled soldier and a man of fierce temperament, was another leading voice. His motives were perhaps more personal, mixed with a genuine belief in Republican ideals. Together, they drew others to their desperate cause. The conspiracy grew, drawing in dozens of senators. Each man knew the terrible risks involved. Failure meant certain death, their names forever cursed. They met in secret, their faces grim, their voices low. They debated the time, the place, the method. How does one strike down the most powerful man in the world? The city itself seemed to hold its breath. Rumors slithered through the alleyways and markets. Yet Caesar, a veteran of countless battles and political skirmishes, seemed almost unconcerned by the swirling whispers of danger. Caesar himself appeared increasingly isolated, perhaps weary. He dismissed his loyal Spanish bodyguard, a fateful decision. Some said he was fatalistic, believing what must be, will be. Others thought his unparalleled success had bred a dangerous overconfidence. He had faced down so many enemies, survived so many threats. Why should this be any different? He received warnings, subtle and direct, but waved them away. The great Julius Caesar, conqueror of Gaul, master of Rome, seemed to believe himself untouchable. This belief would soon be shattered, with devastating consequences for all. The date was set. The Ides of March, March 15th, 44 BC, a day that would live forever in infamy. An eerie sense of foreboding hung over Rome. Strange omens were reported, lights were seen in the sky, unnatural sounds echoed through the night. Caesar's wife, Calpurnia, was plagued by terrible nightmares. She dreamt she held his murdered body in her arms. She begged him not to attend the Senate meeting scheduled for that fateful day. Even the soothsayer Spurina had warned Caesar months before to beware the Ides of March. Caesar hesitated. He was not a man easily swayed by superstition. But Calpurnia's distress, coupled with his own recent ill health, gave him pause. He considered staying home. The conspirators grew desperate. If Caesar did not come to the Senate, their carefully laid plan would unravel. Decimus Brutus, one of Caesar's trusted friends, yet secretly a plotter, was dispatched. He went to Caesar's house. He gently mocked the omens. He appealed to Caesar's pride, urging him not to disappoint the waiting senators. Reluctantly, Caesar agreed to go. His fate was sealed. The Senate was meeting in the Curia of Pompey. It was part of a larger complex built by Caesar's former rival. The conspirators gathered there, their hearts pounding. Daggers were concealed beneath their senatorial togas. Each man played his part, trying to appear normal, calm. When Caesar finally entered the hall, the senators rose to greet him. He took his seat. The air was thick with unspoken tension. The plotters moved closer, surrounding him. The moment they had risked everything for was now upon them. The destiny of Rome hung by a thread. One of the conspirators, Julius Caesar, approached Caesar. He presented a petition, pleading for his exiled brother's return. This was the pre-arranged signal. As Caesar grasped Caesar's toga, pulling it from his shoulders, the others drew their weapons. Publius Servilius Casca struck the first blow. It was a glancing wound, but it drew blood. Caesar, shocked, cried out. He tried to defend himself, grabbing Casca's arm, but then the others surged forward, a flurry of daggers. He was surrounded, outnumbered, trapped. The attack was swift, brutal, and utterly relentless. Caesar fought back briefly, a lion cornered. He was a soldier still, but he saw faces he knew. Men he had pardoned, men he had promoted, men he had considered friends. Then through the bloody chaos he saw him, Marcus Junius Brutus, his protege, perhaps even a son in spirit. When Brutus plunged his dagger in, Caesar's will to resist seemed to break. "Et tu, Brute? You too, Brutus?" he is said to have whispered, his voice full of pain and disbelief. He covered his face with his toga. He fell, bleeding from 23 wounds, at the foot of Pompey the Great's statue. The irony was profound. For a moment silence descended upon the Senate House. A terrible, stunned silence. The deed was done. Caesar the immortal lay dead. The assassins, their hands and daggers stained with his blood, stood panting. Brutus raised his bloody weapon. He tried to address the remaining senators. He spoke of liberty, of the tyrant slain, of the republic restored. But his words fell into a chamber filled with terror and confusion. Most senators, horrified by the violence, scrambled to flee. They did not cheer the assassins as liberators. They ran for their lives, fearing what would come next. News of Caesar's assassination spread through Rome like wildfire. At first there was disbelief, then panic erupted in the streets. Shops were shuttered, citizens barricaded themselves in their homes. The city, which Caesar had controlled with such firm authority, teetered on the brink of anarchy. The conspirators had believed the people would rejoice at the death of the tyrant. They were catastrophically mistaken. Caesar had been popular with the common folk and the soldiers. They saw him not as an oppressor, but as their champion. Their grief quickly began to turn to rage. The assassination did not restore the Republic. It plunged Rome into a new, even more destructive cycle of civil war. A power vacuum had been created, and nature abhors a vacuum. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal lieutenant, seized the moment. He stirred the people to fury with his famous funeral oration for Caesar. Caesar's young heir, Octavian, soon arrived to claim his inheritance. The conspirators found themselves hunted men, their dream of a restored republic drowned in blood. Caesar was dead, but his legacy, and the forces he had unleashed, would now reshape Rome forever, leading not to freedom, but to empire. The daggers of March did not silence Julius Caesar. His mortal body fell. His spirit, however, seemed to grow even larger in death. The conspirators dreamed of a restored republic. They believed that by killing the man, they could kill the idea of one-man rule. They were tragically mistaken. Caesar's assassination did not heal Rome. Instead, it ripped open fresh, gaping wounds. The chaos he had sought to quell returned with a vengeance. New civil wars erupted, fiercer and more devastating than before. The old republic, the one Brutus and Cassius fought to save, was truly dead. It was buried alongside Caesar. From the ashes of these new conflicts, a new Rome would rise. Caesar's young heir, Octavian, displayed a cunning and ruthlessness that would have made his great-uncle proud. He learned from Caesar's mistakes. He understood that Romans would not accept a king, so he offered them an emperor, disguised as a first citizen. He established the Roman Empire. This vast, enduring empire owed its existence to the path Caesar had forged. Caesar had shown that the Republic was too weak to govern its vast territories. He had demonstrated the power of a single decisive leader. Augustus merely completed the work Caesar had begun. Caesar's influence extended far beyond the political arena. His military genius became legendary. His campaigns in Gaul were studied by generals for centuries. His strategies, his logistical skills, his ability to inspire unwavering loyalty in his soldiers, these became the gold standard. His own accounts of the Gallic Wars, the Commentarii de Bello Gallico, were not just historical records. They were masterpieces of clear, concise Latin prose. They were read by schoolchildren and scholars alike. He shaped not only the map of Europe but also the minds of future leaders and thinkers. His ambition was a fire that illuminated new possibilities. The Roman Empire, which Caesar's life and death helped to create, became a dominant force in the world for half a millennium. It spread its laws, its language, and its culture across 3 continents. Latin, the language of Caesar and his legions, became the foundation for many modern European languages. Roman concepts of justice, administration, and engineering profoundly shaped Western civilization. The roads they built, the aqueducts they constructed, the cities they founded, many still bear witness to their incredible legacy. Caesar, the catalyst, had set in motion forces that would transform the world far beyond his own lifetime. The name Caesar transcended its origins, becoming a title of supreme authority. Roman emperors adopted it, and rulers like the Kaisers and Tsars claimed it. His influence persists in our daily lives, especially through the Julian calendar. The Gregorian calendar is a refinement of Caesar's system. Julius Caesar remains a pivotal figure shaping history and our world today. Subscribe for more fascinating historical facts and insights.